remember Malcolm.
We remember Malcolm X.
We remember Malcolm.
We remember Malcolm.
We remember Malcolm
X.
We remember Malcolm.
We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm X.
We remember Malcolm. 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 We remember Malcolm.
This morning is February 21st, 1993.
We remember
In 1965, on this Sunday, Malcolm X was killed in New York 28 years ago. This song is in memory of Brother Malcolm X.
We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm.
Malcolm X said that our struggle was a struggle for human rights, not civil rights. That we shouldn't take our struggle to the U.S. court system, that we should take our struggle to the world.
We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm.
Malcolm said that one of those human rights was the right to self-defense. Malcolm said that we should buy rifles to defend ourselves, and that if the federal government wouldn't pull the sheets off of the Ku Klux Klan, that we'd pull them off ourselves.
We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm.
Malcolm said, I'm not an American. I'm one of the 22 million African people that are the victims of Americanism. One of the 22 million people, nothing but disguised hypocrisy. And I see America through the eyes of a victim. I don't see any American dream. I see an American nightmare.
We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm.
Malcolm said that a people without their history are like a tree without their roots. Malcolm said that of all of our studies, history will best reward us for our research.
We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm.
Malcolm said, don't let the white man speak for you, and don't let the white man fight for you.
We remember Malcolm. We remember Malcolm.
We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, which we intend to bring into existence in this day, in this society, by any means necessary.
We remember Malcolm.
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 All right. Thank you, Brother Jeff. Man, you always are coming with the bomb, brother. I'm telling you, you are coming with the bomb. Not only the bomb, B-O-M-B, but the bomb, the soothing musical medication that we need, make us feel better. I know I'm smiling. I love your imagery that you put in there, brother. You just the best. So
always.
Always. Well, good morning, my Wosay community. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing well, feeling highly blessed, and are in the arms and the bosom of the Most High. Ashe. We are the Wosay community. What we believe and what we practice. Wosay is a community of the sacred African way. The way is Ma'at, truth, justice, and righteousness. We believe in the teachings of our elders and our ancestors that the Creator God created the universe and all life, and has placed in each of us a part of the divine spirit. God living in us and through us has given us the right and the power to establish peace and justice in all human life and true harmony with all creation. We believe in the living faith of our ancestors. Ashe. Today we're going to be talking about and teaching on and sharing information about Malcolm X. Ashe. We've heard one song, and there will be some more information put out there. And this morning, before I was preparing to come in and work with this, to facilitate, I was thinking about a play I saw a while back called The Meeting. I don't know if any of you were able to see that play. It was by a brother named Jeff. Jeff's last name was Stinson, I believe. And he wrote the play back in 1987. And it was a play about Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King meeting someplace, just the two of them together and conversating and arm wrestling and such. And it kind of made me think about the combinations of people that have met. Over this weekend, I watched the movie One Night in Miami, where it was Jim Brown, Sam Cooke, Cassius Clay / Muhammad Ali and Malcolm, and it was a true happening. And then the story, of course, was kind of created. But what they did was these four giants met and conversated and talked and shared information and were able to just get a lot going on. When you look at these two giants, these four giant young men being together. And I was looking at SNCC, reading up on it while I prepared, and it just came to me. I was looking and I was seeing that SNCC, one of the organizers was Ella Baker. She called a meeting and invited all the students that were involved in the Voting Rights Act and had them come together. And that was about 1960-ish. And over this period of time, SNCC, they had, and I didn't even think about this, but at a certain point in time, H. Rap Brown was one of the leaders of the organization. He became the president or chairman of the group. Prior to him was Stokely Carmichael, and then John Lewis in '63, and Dr. King was involved. And I was imagining in my mind these giants all meeting. They had different mindsets and different thinking, and what a story would be like, that conversation, to have John Lewis, H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, Ella Baker, Dr. King, all in a room meeting and talking. And so as I go through today and we talk about interesting people, think about the combinations. Think about how life has brought us together. We're sitting in rooms, having conversations, going about our way, but these are giants as we are giants, meeting and conversating. Unity, I believe, is coming together. It does not mean that something has to be like a monolith. Everybody thinking and talking, and you're getting exactly the same. Now. It's just that meeting, unity, coming together, sharing ideas, debating, and going on. So as we think about, as we meet today, put yourself in that position. Put yourself in the room. Put yourself there and imagine what it would be like as we meet with all the giants, as we talk about giants, we talk about historical figures, that you put yourself there, and what would you do? Shay. So now it's time to read the affirmation, and we're going to have Brother Baba Malik and Sister Debbie, affectionately known as Pookie, if you would come in and give us our affirmations.
I would be remiss, the Wosei community, if I did not seek the community's thoughts and prayers on behalf of my elder sister who lost her son, my nephew, 2 days ago, whom I share a birthday with, February the 28th. So I'm asking for prayers for the family throughout this trying time.
Gee, I mean, right here, too.
God morning, we'll say family. That's right, God morning. There would be no mornings without God. Hotep, Uncle Ujab Sanev, all power to the people. Assalamu alaikum. I'm sorry, I had a handful of organic pumpkin seeds, so blame it on the pumpkin seeds. This is the time in our service where we reaffirm our commitment to the sacred African way, our community affirmation. We will know God's truth to be free and self-determined.
Creator, help us to remember the humanity, glory, and suffering of our ancestors and to honor the struggles of our elders.
Let us strive to bring new vision and life to our people. Let there be peace and harmony among us.
Let us be loving, sharing, and creative. Let us work, study, and listen so we may learn, teach, and cultivate self-reliance.
Grant us power, O Holy One, as we struggle to resurrect our hearts and our homeland.
We will raise our children according to the needs of our nation with discipline, patience, devotion, and courage. We will strive to be the living models of the new direction of our people.
We are an African people.
We are children of God.
Shay. Well, thank you very much. And as we move along, there's something else that came into mind as I was reading this morning, and which I didn't know. As I was reading on Ella Baker, they say that that she had a nickname. They called her Fundi, and I had to look Fundi up, and it's a Kiswahili term, and this is in the 60s, that meant a person who teaches or shares their skills and knowledge. I'm paraphrasing it, but it's someone. So as I sit here and we listen to Minister Makalisi and Minister Imhotep, and we talk about Minister Lazelle, that we have folks here who are sharing their knowledge. People who are sharing the skills that they have gained over the years. And that just blew me away. I was sitting here just letting that ruminate in my brain for a while. This is in the 60s. And we were coming into consciousness, and they had looked at it. She was putting together the student nonviolent committee together, that Fundi, someone that shares the knowledge that they have. And we can look all the way back in the Hosea, going back. They talk about, being able to share the information that you have. Ashe. And with that said, I'm gonna open it up, or shall I say, I'm gonna bring in the candle of justice. And this morning, or morning/afternoon, depending on where you are in these continental United States, we're gonna bring in Sister, and I hope I get it right, Shambalia. If she would come in and light the candle of justice for us. Ashe.
Good morning, Wozay family. Can you hear me?
Yes, there you go. All right.
You muted, Shambalia.
Okay, how about now?
Now.
All right.
Great. So I just want to take this point of privilege and give a shout out to my alma mater, Shaw University, where the Student Nonviolent Coordinated Committee was founded by our alumna, Ella Baker.
Woohoo! Yes.
So again, good morning, Wozay family. I hope you and your loved ones are doing well, are healthy, safe, and just you know, continuing to be in a good light as we go through just the day-to-day of, you know, everything that's going on in this world, on top of us being Black in America. So this morning, I will be holding space for the lighting of the candle in the name of justice. And I will be doing a reading from the Hosea if you have that on hand with you. So just to get started, I work in politics, which is a fortunate and an unfortunate. And every day I wake up and I hold space for our community activists and policymakers to exchange ideas, develop strategies, and master legislative advocacy by exploring how our culture, research, and policy informs and impacts and provide the long overdue justice that Black people in the US and globally rightfully deserve. Regardless of who we are as Black people, women, men, children, and all of the intersectionalities that we hold, we all as Black people continue to seek and demand the justice that we deserve. And that, me being in my everyday career, brought me to this passage within inside the Hosea. And it's the book of Amenope, section 11. And it states, "Do not confuse a person in the court of law, nor mistreat the righteous. Do not give consideration to those in clean clothes and reject those who appear in rags. Accept not the gift of the strong man, nor oppress the weak for him. Justice is a great gift of God, and God gives it to whom God wills. Surely the strength of one who is like God saves the wretched from their oppressor." So as we light the candle of justice, I ask that we hold space for the first freedom fighters who were enslaved and brought to these shores, that we hold space and light this candle of justice for all of the Black women and girls whose voices, unfortunately, are silent every day, that we hold space for the intersectionality of all Black people, especially those who are a part of the LGBTQ+ community. I ask you all to hold space with this candle of justice, that the justice that is sought for us as Black people can only happen by us as Black people. And to always remember that if we seek justice from our oppressors, then we will always continue to have to fight for our own justice. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. I mean, the spirit is working for me now. For out of all the folks to be looking at in history, I try to read up a little bit. I come up on Ella Baker, and I was reading about the sister, and she graduated valedictorian from Shaw University back in the day, I guess 1927, somewhere around there that she graduated. And here we have now, this many years later, Sister Chambalia come in, a graduate of Shaw University, just pumping it up, letting you know that we are on the right path. I say, spirit just be working. Spirit just be working. And with that said, I believe it is time for us to hear a little music, to pick up the spirit, to keep this flow going, to keep this going. We're going to have some song from It's the Stones of Fire. Wait a minute. All right, I'm singing today.
Hey.
All right, so
good morning, I will say, and good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast, like Sister Chambalia, who was in DC, as I understand it. A long time ago, my good sister, who is also in DC and who is giving the message this morning, Sister Mama Nkechi, wrote this poem about Malcolm X that was based on the autobiography of Malcolm X. And so I don't know if she's ever heard anybody else do that poem, but we, the Stones, are going to do it this morning. Now, because of some time restraints due to COVID, we couldn't get it perfect. So there are some mistakes, but we hope you like it. I'm going to play it now. And if you don't hear it or if you don't see the pictures, let me know as soon as possible. Okay, so here we go. Okay. Oh, let me stop it for 1 second. I need to share the screen. Sorry for the delay.
How they say, take time, take time.
You click those buttons.
Yes, yes. That's why I went back to click the buttons. Uh-oh. Okay, let's go. You can see the picture, right?
Yep.
Okay, then let's go.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Malcolm X was a strong black man.
Malcolm X said, the struggles for the land,
Self-determination for black people now,
by any means necessary, was his vow. He was born Malcolm Little on the 19th day, 1925, in the month of May.
he was born up south in Omaha, Nebraska. Before his birth, there was much disaster.
Around the family home, the Klan did ride with mother and children alone inside. Because his father was away that night, the Klan got away without a fight.
The family moved to Lansing, Michigan. Reverend Little bought a house, but there was violence again. Because he worked for Garvey's UNIA, the Klan burned the house one dreadful day.
When Malcolm was 6, he had to take a deep breath when he was told that his father had been beaten to death. He was killed by white racists and thrown across the tracks because he taught Garvey's words of truth to the blacks.
The state broke up his home, drove his mother out of her mind. They sent her away and left her children in a bind. Malcolm was young and now without parental guide, he began to steal. He cheated and he lied.
At the White home where Malcolm was sent, he made good grades
and was class president.
When asked by his teacher what he wanted to be,
a lawyer, Malcolm said, feeling proud and free.
His teacher looked at him and said,
"You're out of your mind. A simpler type of work you had better try to find."
Malcolm was discouraged from that point on, lost interest in school, and the 8th grade was gone.
He traveled to Boston to live with Sister Ella, became a shoe shine boy and a hip slick fella.
He learned how to hustle, how to make a quick buck. Soon caught a train to Harlem where he thought he found his luck. At Small's Paradise, where he got a waiter's job, met plenty of gangsters and learned many ways to rob.
Big Red was the name he was called. His hair was reddish brown and he was 6 feet tall.
Malcolm started robbing houses late at night, stole clothes and jewelry and anything in sight. He was soon caught by police and sent to jail. He was 20 years old and he was given no bail.
Only 20 years old, but he was given no bail.
At first in jail, Malcolm acted really mean. They called him Satan because he made an evil scene.
But in a few years, he took a long look in the prison library and checked out a book.
Malcolm hadn't read a book since the 8th grade, but he copied down the words, page after page. And when the prim his lights went out in his cell, Malcolm read until his eyes were no longer well.
He read about Africa and her many ancient glories. He studied black people and read many, many stories. He studied the dictionary and he gained much knowledge, so much that later on people thought he'd been to college.
While studying in prison, he wrote letter after letter. His brother often visited to make him feel better. He talked of a religion that Malcolm should embrace. He said the Nation of Islam is for the black race.
He said there is a religion for the black race.
Elijah Muhammad was the leader of the group that uplifted black folks and told them the truth.
Malcolm listened closely to what his brother said. It had been many years since he'd been called Big Red.
He began to write the messenger. Muhammad wrote him back. Elijah taught the facts about the whites and the blacks, about the devil who lives in the evil white man, about the tricks and the lies he spreads to every every land.
Malcolm thought about his life and he remembered his past, about the whites who messed his life up hard and fast.
He thought about the Klan who laid his paw across the tracks.
The teacher who said a lawyer wasn't for blacks.
The judge who sent him away to do some time.
And the state that drove his mama out of her mind.
Or that the devil was the white man was now plain to see, and Malcolm now knew what his life was meant to be. So when he got out of jail in 1952, Malcolm changed his ways. He had work to do.
He had work to do.
He had work to do. He gave up cigarettes and he sold no dope.
Because now he was an African with plenty of hope. Now remember at his birth that his last name was Little. Where that name came from was no longer a riddle. It was a slave name from a long time ago. So Malcolm started using X for the name he never knew.
He became a minister and began to teach. To blacks across the country, his message began to reach. He took the nation of Islam to a higher peak and started a newspaper, Muhammad Speaks.
He often talked on street corners and rapped in the bars to the gangsters and the hustlers who had big, fine, fancy cars. And he rapped with black youth and put respect in their eyes as he told them integration was just slavery in disguise.
Malcolm spoke of self-defense and independent land, about human rights that blacks must demand.
He became a great leader with a very busy life. He gave fiery speeches, now had children and a wife.
But what we now know is that the vicious FBI joined black groups to destroy and to spy, and our once strong movement became infiltrated, and Elijah and Malcolm soon became separated.
So Malcolm traveled to Mecca and Africa food too, and when he came back he formed the OAAU.
He said civil rights alone won't help us to rise. To win our struggle, we must internationalize.
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 To hear this man speak made people fascinated.
But also there were those who wanted him assassinated.
Interesting, Malcolm said months went along, and though his life was threatened, he kept pushing on.
He kept pushing on.
He kept pushing on.
But February 21st, 1965 was the last day that Malcolm would stay alive. About to make a speech, Malcolm met his doom upon the stage of the Harlem's Audubon Ballroom.
Now, in the audience were men who did whites' will.
They aimed their guns at Malcolm.
And Malcolm X was killed.
People mourned Malcolm's death all over this land. They loved him because they knew he was a strong black man.
He was a strong black man.
He was a strong black man. He was a strong black man.
They laid his body to rest 6 feet under the ground, but they couldn't stop his teachings when still can be found.
And you can find his spirit right here at Wosay. And that's why we, the Stones of Fire, take this time to say, Malcolm X was a strong black man. Malcolm X said the struggle was for land.
Self-determination for black people now.
By any means necessary was his vow.
Ashe, beautiful, wonderful, strong, powerful. Ashe.
I think we're gonna roll right into historical tribute time. And I was just saying, we talked about these groups coming together. You see that picture of Fidel and Malcolm together? I'd love to have been a fly on the wall when them two brothers got to talking, boy. Excellent, excellent job, Ty. That was an excellent job. Okay. And as we wait for Ty to...
I'm sorry, I had some technical difficulties. Am I back up?
You're back up now. You're rolling now.
Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming you introduced the historical tribute.
Well, I thought you were gonna slide right into it, so I didn't put very much into it. So
okay, well, I can slide right into it.
Yeah.
So so I'm doing a tribute this morning, and I actually don't really like the tribute that I'm doing this morning. I usually like to give inspiring, uplifting tributes about people who did great things and who move our people forward. This morning's tribute is not that, and I apologize in advance to anyone who is disappointed by my presentation. So if you give me a second, I want to go back to sharing my screen. Okay. I really had some technical difficulties here, so let me get back to where I need to be. Okay. I really apologize for the delays. We have meetings on Saturdays to make sure that this doesn't happen, and sometimes it happens anyway. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody can see this? Yes. Okay, so so I want to continue on the theme of Malcolm X. I was going to start with some questions about Malcolm X, but I have a lot of information that I want to cover, and I only have 10 minutes, so I pared this presentation down so that I could get most of the stuff in. I'm going to start with the assumption that everybody loved Malcolm, that everybody here loved Malcolm X, and we believe that Malcolm X's assassination was one of the most significant assassinations that have affected Black people in this country. Okay, so so we all know, for example, who killed Abraham Lincoln. I guess we all know. Most of us know who killed John Kennedy. Most of us know who killed Robert Kennedy. Most of us know who killed Martin Luther King and what happened to those people. Today's question is, who killed Malcolm X? Now, we have a romanticized idea that all Black people loved Malcolm X, and that it was the police and white people and the Nation of Islam that hated Malcolm X. But that's not exactly true. February 21st, 1965 was an unseasonably warm day in Washington, D.C. And I was a teenager. I was 15 years old, and I was sitting with my mother on the back porch when we heard on the radio that Malcolm X had been gunned down and killed in New York City. And my mother said, "Good." She said, "Good." Now, my mother was not political. 1965, of course, was the height of the Civil Rights Movement. And most Black people considered Martin Luther King the leader of the Civil Rights Movement and the leader of Black people. Martin Luther King advocated nonviolence, and everybody loved Dr. King. A lot of Black people, like my mother, didn't understand Malcolm X and his philosophy that Black people should arm themselves and defend themselves, and they thought that he was espousing violence. They didn't understand, and people tend to fear what they don't understand, and they often hate what they fear. Did my mother hate Malcolm X? She said good when he was killed. But my mother wouldn't have killed him, but there were others who wanted him dead and who would have killed him. Now, a line in the poem that you just heard said that there were those who wanted Malcolm assassinated. And when that line was read, this slide was on the screen. Now, in the top of the screen, you can see an FBI badge. And in the upper right-hand corner, there is J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI, who hated Black people. And he started the counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO, one of whose stated purposes was to stop the rise of a Black Messiah. And it went on to say that Malcolm X may have been such a Messiah. And we know that through COINTELPRO, the FBI killed and caused to be killed many Black people and leaders. Anyone who's seen the recent movie, Judas and the Black Messiah, knows that the FBI and the Chicago police murdered Fred Hampton. It also says in the poem that you heard that, well, Malcolm became international. He became an international figure and an international leader. The poem says, to win our struggle, we must internationalize. And this shows the last year of Malcolm's life. If you start in the upper right-hand corner and go clockwise, he's with Ghanaian President Kwame Nkrumah. He's with Prince Faisal of Saudi Arabia. He's at the UN. He is with Muhammad Babu, who was the president of Tanzania before Tanzania combined with Tanganyika and became Tanzania. And he's with Cuban President Fidel Castro. In this picture, the man that is facing us, this man, his name is Gene Roberts. Gene Roberts was Malcolm X's head of security. When Malcolm was shot, it was this man, Gene Roberts, who gave Malcolm mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. I have a picture of that, but I'm not going to show it. Now, the night that Malcolm was killed, Gene Roberts went home and he called his boss and told his boss, Malcolm X has been killed. The boss said, I know, I need you to come into the office tomorrow. The next morning, Gene Roberts went to the police station. He went to work. Gene Roberts, unlike, if you saw the movie, again, the Judas and the Black Messiah, you saw a man that was an undercover, that was a paid informant. Gene Roberts wasn't a paid informant. The Malcolm X's head of security, the man who gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation after he was shot, was a New York police officer, an undercover police officer. He went on to become promoted to detective and was involved in the Panther 21 case, which involved Afeni Shakur, who was, of course, Tupac's mother, and brother Sundiata Kohli, who has been in prison for over 48 years now on another trumped-up charge, and who is represented in part today by this morning's speaker, my friend, attorney Mama Nkechi. Also, the Most High works in strange ways. Just this morning, I got a text from Mama Nkechi who said there is breaking news on the Malcolm X assassination. Just yesterday, they announced that they have new information. Another undercover police officer has given proof that there was a conspiracy between the FBI and the New York police to assassinate Malcolm X. So we know that NYPD was involved, even if they didn't pull the trigger. Now, the last people on this picture who I haven't mentioned, the color pictures, are Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X's mentee, Louis X, known today as Louis Farrakhan. And the bottom picture are members of the Nation of Islam Security Force, the Fruit of Islam. There's also an article on this page an article from Muhammad Speaks, and it shows a bouncing head that appears to be Malcolm X saying that nobody wants to be, I split because no man wants to be number two, and the messenger was jealous of me, and other derogatory things. And if you look very closely, you see that as the head bounces, it develops horns and starts looking like the devil. This was meant to incite, to inflame members of the Fruit of Islam. Now, Louis X, Minister Farrakhan, didn't write this article, but he did write a headline article in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper that said Malcolm X was worthy of death. On February 21st, 1965, a 5-man team of the Fruit of Islam went into the Audubon Ballroom in New York City with the plan to assassinate Malcolm X. When Malcolm came to the stage and started to speak, one of them stood up in the back of the room and shouted at the man sitting beside him, "Get your hands out of my pocket." That drew the attention of Malcolm's security team, who headed toward the distraction. Then a second accomplice lit a smoke bomb in the back of the room, and that added to the confusion. The other 3 members of the team rushed the stage and fired a sawed-off shotgun, a .45 automatic, and a Luger at Malcolm and hit him. The shotgun blast was first and was at point-blank range. Now, the autopsy on Malcolm said that Malcolm might have survived the other wounds, but it was the shotgun blast that killed him. Now, one of the assailants was shot in the leg by Malcolm's security and was grabbed by the crowd, who probably would have killed him, but he was rescued by police who miraculously showed up in force just after the shooting. Now, there hadn't been any policemen around before the shooting, but just after the shots, they were there, almost as if they knew something was going to happen, okay? Now, the man that you see here being wrestled with, his name is Talmadge Hayer, He was also known as Thomas Hagen. And he had the .45 automatic on him, and he was arrested. 4 days later, the New York police arrested 2 men from the New York mosque, the mosque that Malcolm started, who did not commit the crime, who didn't kill Malcolm. And the police knew they didn't do it, but they arrested these 2 men and tried them for murder. Now, the 2 men were members, as I said, of Malcolm's mosque. They couldn't have been on the scene because Malcolm's security team would have recognized them and would have not let them in the building. But the police arrested them anyway. Hare, the guy you see here, in court said that he was a part of the team that killed Malcolm X and said that the other 2 had nothing to do with it. Despite that, the 3 were convicted of murder and given 20-year to life sentences. One of the wrongly convicted men served 22 years and was paroled and then died in 2009. The other wrongly convicted man served 20 years and is still alive today. Hare, the man who's seen here, the man who admitted doing it, served 45 years and then he was paroled. Today, he says that he regrets what he did and he prays for forgiveness 5 times a day. Now, there's more to the story, but my 10 minutes is up, and so I'm going to have to end. But I do want to end on this note. There is some speculation that the man that you see to the right of this picture, the man in the long coat with the white thing in his pocket, there's some speculation that he is the man who fired the shotgun. You know, this picture, this slide is a still picture from a video. If you watch the video, you see the man to the right calmly walk away while the police and everybody else is wrestling with Hare. Now, all of my research for this tribute came from the books, The Dead Are Rising, The Life of Malcolm X by Les Payne and Tamara Payne, A Life of Reinvention, Malcolm X by Manning Marable, and the Netflix movie, Who Killed Malcolm X by Abdul Rahman Muhammad. Now, if you're interested in the topic, that is an excellent movie to watch. It's on Netflix. It's 6 parts, but he goes in depth into everything that I'm talking about today. Now, all 3 of these sources, with their independent investigations, agree that this is the face of the man who fired the shotgun and killed Malcolm X. His name was William Bradley, and he changed his name to Al-Mustafa Shabazz. He was a member of the Newark Mosque, where all 5 of the assailants came from. He died in 2018 in Newark, New Jersey, where he lived his whole life, and he was never, ever questioned by police about the killing of Malcolm X, even though he was caught in a bank robbery using a sawed-off shotgun, and he was released from that by the FBI. So I end this tribute the way that I hope Malcolm would want me to. This morning's service is dedicated to Brother Baba, Minister Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, the man who Ozzie Davis called our shining Black prince in his eulogy at the funeral. May Malcolm's name, his spirit, his teaching, and his commitment live in the hearts and the minds and be an inspiration to our people forever and forever and forever. Ankh Ujasaneb, and thank you, Wilson.
Excellent, excellent.
Beautiful, Ty, beautiful.
I say. Man, that was nice.
Amazing.
And I say, while we sit and let this information kind of saturate our brains and put some thought into it, I want to see if I can call Minister Makalisi. This is somebody, the term fundi, somebody that shares their information, shares their experience, shares their knowledge with us, with the next generation, as it says, shares shares and teaches for the next generation. That we will invite Minister Makalisi, if you can come in and bless us with a song, share some of your artistry with the community. Ashe.
To come behind that presentation, that information, that spirit, that power, Whew, that's a challenge. Yeah, I loved Brother Malcolm, the work that he was doing, the spirit that he brought forward, the spirit that he stirred up and stimulated in us. And Brother Ty, that research you have done is just awesome, beautiful. Ashe. So this song that I have, you made me change a word in it. You know, the word is this instead of that. And it's, you know, it was inspired by a traditional song, but every time I feel the spirit. And so let me just get on into it. Ashe. How y'all doing, Wolsey? Hope y'all are doing okay. Ashe.
No less than blessed.
No less than
Right.
blessed.
Very inspired.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
All right, let me try to get back on track here. Brother Ty, you just stirred it up. You stirred it up. All right. Every time I feel this spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel this spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Up on the mountain, I'm in Rospoke, truth and justice, love and hope. All around me looked so fine. Thanks and praises, Ra is mine. Every time I feel this spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel this spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. The great Nile rivers, chilly and cold, chilled my body, warmed up my soul. Now I come forth night and day, living up the sacred way. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Prayer is the voice of my desire. Holy One, take me higher. In my life, your will be done. In your love, let us all be one. Every time I feel this spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel this spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Feel that spirit, let it move your heart, let's pray. Feel that spirit, let it move your heart, let's pray. Let's pray for truth and harmony. Let's pray for health and prosperity. Let's pray for courage and faith, the sacred African way. Let's pray for all our children. Let's pray for the future we're building. Let's pray for parents and elders, night and day, sisters and brothers. Let our prayer be our desire to rise up higher and higher with the Holy Spirit mark and with Septepi power. And let's do all we can in every way we can to make life more beautiful for our people in every land. Feel that spirit, let it move our hearts, let's pray. Feel that spirit, let it move our hearts, let's pray. To rise up and accomplish what we will. Rise up, accomplish what we will. Rise up, accomplish what we will. The sacred African way. Feel that spirit, 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 feel that spirit. Let's pray the sacred African way. Let's rise up, accomplish what we will. Let's rise up, accomplish what we will. Rise up, accomplish what we will. The sacred African way.
I say. Thank you, brother Minister, as always, let's feel the spirit. Let us take what Minister just said to heart. Let us take it and feel the spirit of the Most High within each and every one of us. And as we begin to move on to the next station and a portion of our service, just putting these thoughts together as I saw Malcolm with Fidel Castro. What conversation was that like as he met with brothers tied into the UN? What were those conversations like as we have like-minded people coming together, sharing knowledge, sharing their experiences, where Malcolm came from and where Fidel came from and where the other folks who were there, they may not have came from the same place, but they reached that same point. Something I had read and reading about Paul Robeson is one of his dear friends was the infamous Bumpy Johnson. We hear stories about the godfather of Harlem and this person, and one of his best friends was Paul Robeson, and they would come by and they would play chess and conversate. And there was a incident where Paul Robeson was singing in I want to say was the Catskills in New York, and a gang of whites with the police came in there to arrest him and beat heads. There was over 25,000 people there, and he was able to be snuck out of that setting. But when he got to New York, he ran across Bumpy Johnson, who had put together a crew, and they was armed to bear, and them gangsters was going up to Catskill to protect and provide a safety for Paul Robeson. Two different points of the world. One is a scholar, one is a gangster, but they come together. This the Most High. The Most High just is able to put us all together. So as we move on, let's highlight a few more names that are wanting before we move on too far in the service.
My blessing to do. So Mama Francine Leonard is with us this morning. So glad you're here. Sister Aziza, another one of my favorite Wose Oakland lady sister friends. Brother Bill, who's in, was gonna say Sacramento, but you all the way in Florida now. It's just amazing. Brother Bamadele is with us this morning. We have also Tyimba's brother, Pastor Buzz, is here with us. Hey. We're honored to have you. Brother Damani is here. Sister Debbie, also known as Pookie. We prefer the name Pookie. So glad you're here with us today. Our wonderful, loving grandmama Rose is with us today also. So happy to see you. And we are looking forward to hearing from our sister, Mama Nkechi. I know you're going to bring it today, our sister. We're so glad and thankful for you. Our sister Pam Williams is here with us today. And our queen, Mother Thurston is with us here today. Ashe, we're so thankful. And her lovely daughter, Rana's with us. And Sister Aboon is with us here today also. So that's enough for right now.
And Sister Lanice. Sister Lanice is here. We haven't seen Sister Lanice for a long time, but I did call her.
All right, sending out hugs and kisses, hugs and kisses. Thank you. And so now's that important time of our service. I always say each part is my favorite, but this is one of the most important portions, and this is the Litany of Sacrifice. This is where we have to dig into our pockets and help to keep the lights on. Help to help us help you, help us help the community, help us grow us. All right, Ashe. And so I want to call in my dear Sister Aboon and Baba Katabazi, if you could lead us in Litany of Sacrifice. Ashe.
Ashe. Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. Welcome to all. Uncle Job Sineb, indeed. This is the time in the Wose community for the Litany of Sacrifice. And the Litany of Sacrifice allows us to have an opportunity to return some of the blessings that we have received throughout the week or throughout the year, to return some of those blessings to the Wosei community. The Wosei community is striving to maintain, to sustain ourselves and continue to push our message out. We know that indeed in these times, these are sacrifices, but know that all of your sacrifices and all of your contribution that comes to the Wosei community goes directly into the work. None of our missionary leaders or members of our council accept any kind of salary. You know, we work for the community. So know that all those contributions is going forward to the work. This morning's inspiration is taken from the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. Dr. Williams feel a great deal of passion in that book, and the Wosei community has leaned heavily upon his work. We framed and modeled our Constitution on his 10 points that he outlined in his master plan. And so this morning's inspiration reading comes from a portion of that master plan. It's chapter 15 of his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, under the title, The Shape of Things to Come, a Master Plan. I'll be reading from the second paragraph of that of that opening page. Dr. Williams says, in this section of the specifics of a master plan, it is to be the functioning framework of a unifying race organization of a kind never presented to the Black race before. To make all of this crystal clear, what is meant by a race organization, how it will differ from anything attempted before, and what should be some of its guiding principles and understanding, and enumerated below. For emphasis, a few of the most important propositions are necessary recapitulations of points already presented in preceding pages. The main focus here is on Blacks in the United States because whether they know it or not, they're in the very best situation to be the lead-off example for the whole African world. And so those very inspirational words coming from Dr. Chancellor Williams from his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. Now, I'm wondering what happened to the litany that was up. It disappeared on my screen. Okay, the Litany of Sacrifice. And when we finish and conclude the Litany of Sacrifice, they will post the addresses and the ways and means that, that you can contribute your sacrifices. The Litany of Sacrifice. Save us, O Holy One, by your name. Vindicate us by your might. Hear my prayer, divine protector. Listen to the words of my mouth. How can we repay the Holy One for the gifts that have been given to us? We will lift up the cup of salvation and call upon the God of our ancestors. We will fulfill our vows to our Creator in the presence of all our people. Gladly we bring our sacrifices to you. We will praise your name, O Amen Ra, for it is good. Umoja, unity. We should strive to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. So stay boom.
Kuji Chagalia, self-determination. We shall define, name, create, and speak for ourselves.
Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We shall build and maintain our communities together. Our brothers and sisters' problems shall be ours to solve together.
Ujima, cooperative economics. Together we shall build and maintain our own businesses and together profit from them.
Nia, purpose. We shall make our collective vocation the building and development of our community and the restoration of our people to our traditional greatness.
Kuumba, creativity. We shall do as much as we can in any way we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it.
Imani, faith. We will believe with all our hearts in our God and our people.
And in the righteousness and the victory of our struggle.
Ashe. And I see that you've posted the different addresses that you can send your sacrifices. We thank you for everything. We thank you for all the sacrifices that have been submitted in the past. And we thank you for those checks that you're writing today. And I will close this litany with a very short prayer. Holy One, we give thanks for these sacrifices. We know and we acknowledge the very difficult times, the economic times that so many of us face in our communities and our families and across the land. And so we accept these sacrifices with the greatest sense of gratitude and with the greatest commitment to maximize those sacrifices to expand and to maintain and to push our work forward, that our people may be restored on some level. Holy One, we pray that each and every one indeed experience and enjoy Ankh Ujeb Seneb. Amin Ra, Ashe, Amin Ra.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Baba Katabazi and Ty stepping in. I know our sister Boone is somewhere and sorry didn't get a chance to hear, but I know that she is here in spirit. Well, now this is that time in our service. Again, it is definitely one of my favorite parts of the service, and that is the message. And we are blessed to be able to have today bringing the service, the message, the word, our own sister Nkechi, that she is one who Ty has been knowing her for a long time, and through meeting and her going through the members classes and conversating and talking, and got her book here at the house, I'm feeling like she's an old friend. Feel like we've been out here in the struggle together for quite some time, and that's the power of the Most High. And here we're going to have the sister come forth, and as I talked about the word, and I got some response from Minister Imhotep, Fundi, a person who teaches, a person that shares their skills and experiences with the next generation. I say those who put that information out there, I've gathered this, let me share it with you and you can help to move this forward. So without further ado, I want to call in my dear sister, it's Nkechi, Mama Nkechi, if you can come in and bless us with some of your experiences, some of your knowledge, some of the things that you have gained over these years. Mama Nkechi, are you there?
I am here, Baba Sydney. How are you?
I am doing fine. Look at you, beautiful.
Thank you so very much, my brother. And thank you so very much, the Stones of Fire, for that phenomenal rendition of my story poem about Malcolm X. It just had me just like, I was just on cloud nine. So we're going to go in and get started because I know we don't have too much time. And I got a lot of ground I'm going to cover. So I'm going to kind of keep a crisp clip if that's okay. I'm going to be a little bit more subdued, I think, than I normally am. So please kind of bear with me. And thank you, Baba Bell. Go in and start sharing the screen, and I'll wait for the first screen to come up and I'll let you know when to advance. Thank you so very much, Wose. So today's message title is called The Progeny of Malcolm X. The Progeny of Malcolm X, the new African independence movement. And in today's service, I would like to provide a close-up view of the history, philosophy, and opinions of those who feel that they were the next logical evolution from the teachings of El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, the new African independence movement, which actually drew its inspiration from what they termed the Malcolm X Doctrine, the primacy of land, internationalization, and self-defense. Next slide. So, of the three brothers who bear witness for Malcolm X, known as we were by our slave name, the Henry brothers, only Milton Gaidi was sure from the beginning. I was the last to come to the realization that it was he who should come and that there was no need to, quote, look for another. Those were the words of Richard Henry, later to be known as Imari Abubakari Obadeli, from a small book he authored in 1966 entitled War in America, the Malcolm X Doctrine. And Obadeli continued, next slide. He said, I personally saw and spoke to Malcolm X on only 4 occasions, once in Washington, in the lobby of the headquarters hotel just before the 1963 March on Washington. Another time shortly before was in the Shabazz restaurant in Detroit. Each time Malcolm smiled, shook my hand, and spoke with that characteristic courtesy and brotherliness. But I was sure he did not know me and certainly did not recall me from one meeting to the next. Twice more we were to meet, once short days before the death of John Kennedy, when he came to Detroit to address a rally sponsored by the Civil Rights Group Goal, Group on Advanced Leadership, of which I was president, a moment when Malcolm's popularity with the Muslim rank and file was at an all-time high, and he was still within Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam. The last time was a year later, February 14th, 1965, the day his home in New York was firebombed. He came to Detroit despite the firebombing, so to speak, at a rally at which my brother Milton and brother AJ, owners of the Afro-American Broadcasting Company, had invited him. On this occasion, Malcolm had departed Elijah's Nation of Islam. He was sure of his own death to come, magnificently unconcerned, but prepared, certain that either Black Muslim enforcers during the bidding of Elijah Muhammad or agents of the United States government would soon succeed against him personally, where both had failed before. 4th slide. We talked at length in his hotel room. I was anxious that we should give national form and specific programmatic direction to the new movement that his break with Elijah signaled. He assured us that it would come. And when he gave up his life in New York the following Sunday, February 21st, we were left, I felt, without that direction. Of course, though, that was not true. All that we should do, Malcolm had already set out before us. It was left but for us to organize and carry out the work. So we come, the Malcolmites, laboring with and speaking for the young Black mass who, with more debt to Malcolm than they realized and more wisdom that we who now join them, began our new war in America. From this moment, the cry on our lips, the goal in our hearts, the drive behind our minds, our might, our very lives is land and power on this continent in our time. How we shall achieve this is the subject of this first Malcolmite epistle written in October 1966, which we have called War in America, the Malcolm X Doctrine. Last slide. And with that introduction, I would like to begin our presentation today with the words of Dr. Maulana Karenga, quote, the life and legacy of Minister Malcolm X, said there should be that last slide, weighs heavily in the scales of history. And we rightfully place him in the vanguard of that long and worthy list of prophets, messengers, and moral teachers, saints, sages, and holy men and women who walked worked and struggled righteously in the world and serve as awesome symbols and essential subjects in the sacred narrative we know as Black history. Malcolm taught us the moral responsibility of constant learning and living a good life of struggle and sacrifice. And he taught us in the way of the ancestors to reaffirm our dignity and remember our divinity, to do good and walk divinely in the world. Karinga tells us that one of the many ways to understand and appreciate the mind and mission of Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, is to situate his life and teachings within the ancient, ongoing, and varied tradition of Black spirituality, and to search for signs of how well he walked in the way of the ancestors, the good and godly way of the righteous and the rightfully revered and remembered. The most ancient African spiritual tradition of which we have written evidence is Ma'at in the sacred Usia of ancient Kemet. Ma'at is called the good way, the way of truth and justice, and the way of righteousness directed toward the perseverance, enhancement, and ultimately the rightful enjoyment of life. Indeed, Seba Ameno Mope says in the Husia that his Ma'atian teachings are, quote, teachings for life, instructions for well-being, to direct one rightly, to cause one to flourish on earth, to steer clear of evil, and to be praised in the mouth of the people, end of quote. So, engineer, we can just take me back to the main stage, and I will go in and continue. One of the most pivotal and prolific lectures I heard while a student at Howard University didn't come from a professor or PhD, but it came from a speaker in a room on the first floor of Frederick Douglass Hall. And I remember it as though it happened just yesterday. The speaker was this tall, dark-skinned, and if memory serves me correct, sported a bald head. This was probably around 73, 74. He was talking history, my thing. My ears were immediately set on fire. He was running down the specifics of the 13th and 14th Amendments to the US Constitution. My eyes were wide with amazement. Wow, I never looked at it that way before. You mean we're not legally citizens of the United States? Just as that lifetime revelation Malcolm went through when he was sentenced with all the abuses that he and his family, his father and mother-in-law suffered throughout the years, thinking about how whites were devils, I too thought back over the past 300-year existence of Blacks on this soil, the lynchings, the disrespect, having to be better just to have a chance at being equal. The brother's argument was quite compelling. Little did I know that I would spend the greater part of the next 15 years operationalizing those theoretical pinnings into a nebulous reality. Thanks to Brother Tahimba Payton way back in the day. Little did I know that I would be forced to become one of the most vocal proponents of this ideology, an ideology that took the teachings of Malcolm X to the next level, an ideology which sought to put meat and substance to Malcolm's constant appeals to the primacy of land, internationalization, self-determination, independence. So to talk about this movement, which heralded from the teachings of Malcolm, it's first necessary to talk about those Henry brothers that I began my presentation with. Dr. Imari Abubakar Obadeli, formerly known as Richard Bullock Henry, who made his transition in February 2010, I would submit he is the single most important person responsible for the philosophy, principles, and practices of what would become known as the New African Independence Movement, beginning with the formation of the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. But we rarely hear anything about him. Half of y'all probably never even heard this name. Why? Is it similar to how we all know the name of Angela Davis, but most in this country are ignorant about Assata Shakur, or how we know about Washington, D.C.'s infamous former Mayor Marion Barry, but not the revolutionary Mayor Chokwe Lumumba? I want to give just a bit of background because organizations and movements do not materialize from a vacuum. They are shaped and molded by the triumph and travail of very real people. So as a teenager during the 1940s, Brother Maury grew up reading and studying J.A. Rogers on the kitchen table, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, Africa's Gift to America, the world's great men of color. During the 40s I'm talking about, this was Brother Maury's upbringing. One of his brothers, Dr. Walter Lester Henry, was head of the medical department at Howard University Hospital, its chief endocrinologist. But it was Brother Maury's older brother, Milton Henry, later known as Gaidi, who he was most greatly inspired by. Milton was one of the leading Tuskegee Airmen, Black military officers who fought against discriminatory impositions suffered by Black officers during World War II. But when Gaidi returned to Philadelphia, he and Brother Maury formed a civil rights group that once featured W.E.B. Du Bois as a speaker, also led boycotts against segregation in the military. As earlier mentioned, Brothers Gaidi and Maury were acquaintances of Malcolm X, and through GOAL, Group on Advanced Leadership, brought Malcolm to Detroit, where he delivered his prolific speech, Message to the Grassroots. Malcolm was so impressed by Imari and Gaidi that he often said, quote, "If the Henry brothers ever need me, all they have to do is call, and I'll hop on a train and be right there." Milton Gaidi Henry was an articulate attorney who possessed one of the sharpest legal minds in the country. It was Gaidi who accompanied Malcolm to Cairo to attend the second Organization of African Unity Conference in the summer of '64. It was Gaidi who recorded the first of 3 major Detroit speeches by Malcolm X, all of which were recorded posthumously. The reason why we know and hear them today as long-playing records: Message to the Grassroots, The Ballad or the Bullet, The Last Message, delivered at a Black Image Award ceremony organized by Brother Gaidi on February 14, 1965. Remember? That was the date Malcolm X's home had been firebombed early that same morning. However, Malcolm was so committed to supporting his friends, the Henry brothers, Gaidi and Imari, that he made the speaking engagement despite suffering from smoke inhalation. And as we all know, he was assassinated a week later. Although Malcolm's Message to the Grassroots had a huge impact on Brother Maury, he once told me that his light bulb was set on fire in 1966 in a park in Detroit, where he listened to Yoruba temple leader Baba Surjiman Adifumi talk about how they formed the Harlem People's Congress and crowned him king. And that rang a huge bell in Brother Maury's mind. It triggered in him the essence of what self-determination is all about. You make it plain that you don't wait for someone else or someone else's law to tell you to be independent. Self-determination means that you do it yourself. This was the year after Malcolm's assassination, which devastated the Henry brothers, as Malcolm was in the embryonic phases of articulating his new ideas. That same year, Brother Maury helped to form the Malcolm X Society, which was designed to carry on and accelerate the teachings of Malcolm X. So, in 1966, on a plane back from London, Brother Maury had been on his way to China because Mao Zedong had promised to give the Black movement $2 million. But anyway, he wrote a small, powerful book called War in America, the Malcolm X Doctrine. And as a result of this manuscript, the Malcolm X Society decided to initiate a Black government conference for March 1968, utilizing 3 themes from War in America, dubbed the Malcolm X Doctrine. Again, independent land, internationalization, and self-defense. And this doctrine was to be the main philosophy behind the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa, which was formed at the conference on March 31st, 1968. Brother Maury was chosen by the Malcolm X Society to write the final documents to submit to the conference attendees, the proposed laws, procedures, programs, and a Declaration of Independence, y'all, which reads partially as follows: "We, the Black people in America, in consequence of arriving at a knowledge of ourselves as a people with dignity, long deprived of that knowledge, as a consequence of revolting with every decimal of our collective and individual beings against the oppression that for 300 years has destroyed and broken and warped the bodies and minds and spirits of our people in America, in consequence of our raging desire to be free of this oppression, to destroy this oppression wherever it assaults anyone in the world, and in consequence of our inextinguishable determination to go a different way, to build a new and better world, do hereby declare ourselves forever free and independent of the jurisdiction of the United States of America and the obligations which that country's unilateral decision to make ourselves and our ancestors paper citizens placed upon us. It went on to say that we claim no rights from the United States other than those rights belonging to human beings anywhere in these world, and these include the right to damages, reparations due us for the grievous injuries sustained by our ancestors and ourselves by reason of U.S. lawlessness. So on March 31st, 1968, the conference of over 500 Black nationalists adopted the Declaration of Independence for the Black nation in North America, named the nation the Republic of New Africa, identified 5 states in the Deep South as a subjugated national territory in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, created basic law and a provisional or pre-independence government with elected officials under a mandate to free the land. Under the leadership of Brother Imari Obadeli, much of the early analysis of underpinning what is now known as New African political science was shaped, including the use of the Geneva Conventions and their protocols as a defense to the incarceration of new African prisoners of war and various international law instruments emphasizing the rights of colonial peoples to self-determination. The Republic of New Africa teaches that all Blacks, descendants of Africans enslaved in North America, are citizens of the Republic of New Africa by birth, as a result of being kidnapped from Africa, molded by a common oppression, and to a new African nation in the world, geographically separated from the continent of Africa, but a new branch of the African family tree on this western side of the Atlantic Ocean. Despite the repression of language, religion, and history, the essence of African cultures from the different regions of Africa survived, fused into a new culture, a new nation by experiences in America. The Republic of New Africa teaches that Blacks may choose to give up their new African citizenship, may choose dual USA RNA citizenship, or may opt for exclusivity. But it is the right of choice that is key and the crux to the right to self-determination. At no time, however, was a national plebiscite or people's vote held to inform Blacks of these options under international law, so an informed and collective determination could be made about our political future. Instead, the Republic of New Africa teaches U.S. citizenship was a unilateral decision thrust upon citizens of the Black nation, and as such was not legally binding on those who may choose otherwise. Robert Williams, author of Negroes with Guns, who was celebrated in nationalist circles for his show of armed propaganda in North Carolina in 1961, was named at that founding convention in 1968 as the first president, despite the fact that he was in exile in China. Gaidi Obadeli was named first vice president. Betty Shabazz was named second vice president. Amari Obadeli was designated Minister of Information. Herman Ferguson, at that time a leader of the Ocean Hill-Brownsville movement, was named Minister of Education. Queen Mother Arlene Moore, Minister of Health and Welfare. H. Rap Brown, Minister of Defense. And the co-ministers of culture were Mary Baraka, Maulana Karenga, and Osojimena Adefumi. The year, folk, was 1968, and just about everyone who was anyone wanted a part of this dynamic new movement. Some of these early people were involved in name only, others never served, some stayed till their deaths, but the clear message being delivered was that this was the birth of a new era and a new movement of nationalism. The next step in the ideology of Malcolm X, laying the basis of freedom, the new African independence movement. I have always found fascinating accounts of the first anniversary celebration of the Republic of New Africa, held in Detroit at the famous church ministered by Aretha Franklin's daddy, C.L. Franklin. It could have been a celebration or a cultural gathering. Any one of us in this Wose room would have attended. You know, there were over 200 people in attendance, lazily milling around the glass doored lobby, sisters in their beautiful flowing African garb, dashiki wearing brothers getting their back on, children running around, vendors gawking their wares. You catch my drift, saying their goodbyes, arranging transportation, finding out where the party was going to be. President Gaidi had left the celebration of the first anniversary early, flanked by 4 guards outside other legionnaires, the name of the military force of the Republic of Africa, with rifles lined the outside of the church building. The account went as follows. Police cars pull up and shout, quote, "Hey, NIGGER, put down that gun." Other police take aim to sneak shoot. Now remember, it was legal to carry loaded rifles in the street, but no one inside the church was aware of any of this that was going on outside. All of a sudden, Brother Maury's 13-year-old son, who had walked outside, immediately dove back through the doors into the crowd, shouting for everyone to get down. What happened next, my brothers and sisters, defied credulity. They had been chased back inside the church by a police barrage of bullets fired upon innocent children, women, and men indiscriminately. The huge glass windows of the church caved in, showering the brothers and sisters with shards and slivers of glass. Pandemonium was everywhere. People scrambled under the church pews in the sanctuary. Turn the lights out, Brother Maury ordered. Because of the intense barrage of firepower, everyone was forced to retreat to the back of the church, but not before the legionnaires engaged in self-defense shot back. Making it to the front of the church near a door that led to the basement, the minister of information called out to the people, "This is Imari. Follow my voice. Come this way." One after another, people crawled forward on their elbows and bellies. When each reached the front bench, they quickly darted across the exposed aisle to where Brother Imari was and down the stairway into the basement. The shooting had gotten closer. The enemy was inside the building. Bullets could be heard striking in the sanctuary. But Brother Imari later said that far from killing us, the New Bethel Baptist Church incident made the RNA an instant international reality. Miraculously, and different from later that year when Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were crassly assassinated. The 800 rounds fired into the church by police had killed no one, though several were seriously wounded. Unbelievable. However, all of the nearly 200 people who had been inside the church were arrested, all of them. And because the jail was not large enough to hold them, they were all herded into the basement parking lot of the police station. Women, children, and men had to stand for nearly 90 minutes with their hands stretched tortuously over their heads. Judge Crockett, Reverend Franklin, and others got out of their beds to help and were successful in getting all the women and children released. Brother Imari said that Reverend Franklin said that he knew we hadn't shot up his church. The police did it, and without provocation, he stood in defense of us. Even after they put severe pressure on him as to ruin a music benefit he had planned, denying him insurance and trying to plant marijuana in his suitcase. Days later, the police issued warrants for the arrest of 3 new Africans, Raphael Vieira, Brother Shaka Fuller, and Alfred 2X Hibbett, charging them with assault to commit murder. But guess what? They were each acquitted by a Detroit Black jury. That was 1969. In 1970, Amari Obadele, Chokwe Lumumba, and others in the New African Independence Movement moved the center of the struggle to the South. In March of 71, Black farmer Lofton Mason entered into agreement with the RNA for the purchase of land in Hinds County, Mississippi, and publicized a land celebration day to consecrate the land as El Malik, again in reverence to our Black shining prince, El Hajj Malik Shabazz. The Klan appeared on TV that night saying that the RNA had no business here, they would not have no capital in their state, and that they will be run out. Leaflets signed KKK taunting, "There'll be no meeting here Sunday, NIGGERS." I would listen to Brother Kwame Afo tell the story of 40 to 50 cars on the highway headed to the celebration, with Blacks on the highway, with the Klan throwing rocks and bricks on one side, and the FBI and the other vigilantes on the other. Despite their threatening presence, there was no outright attack, perhaps because of the visible show of Blacks ready for defense. The slogan, "Free the Land," proliferated everywhere and became the official greeting of the movement. The New Bethel incident and the land celebration were not the first times the RNA defended themselves against police violence. At 6:30 in the morning of August 18, 1971, a force of approximately 40 armed and bulletproof vested Jackson, Mississippi police and FBI agents surrounded the official residence of Imari Obadele, who was president of the RNA at that time. Inside were 7 persons, Brother Imari and 3 others were not at their residence. They were spending the night at the new RNA office several blocks away. A smaller force of police and FBI also surrounded that building. At the residence, following a predetermined plan, the police and agents supposedly seeking a fugitive who was not there, y'all remember Judas and the Black Messiah, but anyway, gave the sleeping occupants 75 seconds to come out and then opened fire into the bedroom windows with lethal rockets carrying gas charges. In the general firing that followed, a police lieutenant was killed and 2 were wounded. At the RNA office, Brother Imari walked out the office and challenged the police and agents as they moved in. They refrained from gunning him down in naked view of neighboring Blacks. All 4 here were arrested, as were the 7 at the house, who suffered no injuries in the heavy firing and gassing, specifically because they were prepared for self-defense. The erection of a bunker they had begun building under the house, which led to an adjacent field. But they were beaten afterwards. The men and women were paraded half-dressed through city streets in chains, tear gas, and charged with murder, assault, and waging war against the state of Mississippi. All 11 were originally charged with murder. 9 were also indicted by the U.S. for conspiracy to assault federal officers and having assaulted them. Now let's contrast that with January 6th. I'm not going to go off script and do that, but you can just make that contrast in your own mind. Waging war against the state of Mississippi, and all they were doing was defending themselves against an unprovoked attack. Among the 37 pre-trial motions filed by a brilliant RNA defense team of attorneys was the Article 3 briefs. This historic sovereign immunity challenge to U.S. jurisdiction over African people in North America argued that the Republic of New Africa, not unlike the indigenous nations in North America, is a nation separate from, though held captive by the United States. Consequently, the RNA attorneys argued that U.S. lower courts had no jurisdiction over officials of the RNA. This was the epitome of new African political science, and the legal motions and briefs laid out the history of the Black nation in North America, our rights under international law, and that as the president or sovereign of the nation, that President Obadeli could not be tried or imprisoned in a U.S. court. He insisted that the courts recognize his political status, which was in accord with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the United Nations Charter, the 13th Amendment, and Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. And if they refuse to recognize his status, then the U.S. government must comply with the provisions of the Geneva Convention as they relate to prisoners of war. However, these motions were overruled, denied, and avoided by various judges. Other issues in the case included what Brother Tayimba was talking about, the COINTELPRO, where the FBI may use secret illegal methods against the Black movement and whether criminal courts may help them to hide this. Why was this important? After 6 years of denial and lies, the FBI finally admitted conducting a counterintelligence program against Imari Obadeli and the Republic of New Africa aimed at destroying the movement. Again, Judas and the Black Messiah. Documents released by the FBI in 1977 show a frightful series of dirty tricks, forgeries, damaging anonymous letters, and many other violations of human rights by the FBI against Imari Obadeli, Chokwe Lumumba, and others within the Republic of New Africa. The FBI arranged for highly prejudicial stories in the press. I have gone through these thousands of pages, and it will make your blood boil. Forged letters to spouses, friends, cadre supporters, trying to inspire violence between La Cosa Nostra and Black numbers men in Detroit who were thought to be supporting Black nationalist movement, trying to create violence between RNA personnel and the Black Panthers, sought to provoke the Jewish Defense League into actions against the Black folk, tried to scurry up who would be in sympathy with the Ku Klux Klan when they were down in the South. Brother Tayimba might recall that it was around this time when the Supreme Court had denied cert in terms of the release of Imari Obadeli, when he was to have to be turned back to prison, when we were in DC outside of the Supreme Court, because we were going to be doing a rally, we were debating whether Brother Imari should go into exile or whether he should surrender himself and go back to prison. Amari Abubakar Obadeli was the chief architect and visionary of the philosophy, principles, and practices of the New African Independence Movement, which was led by the Republic of New Africa. And many people, including and especially Chokwe Lumumba and Assata Shakur, who not only adopted the philosophy, but used their own experiences to expand and put meat on it. Indeed, in November 1979, Assata Shakur stated that Malcolm X had his dream, and his dream was land nationhood, and his dream has become my dream. What did Malcolm X teach? She queried. Land, freedom, and self-determination, nation building, independence, and the tradition of resistance. Assata Shakur tells us that ever since we were snatched from our homeland, Africa, we have always had people who fought back, fashioned resistance movements for independence. It was military forces nurtured in the hills of Santo Domingo that brought independence to Haiti. And 175 years before that, on that hump of Brazil, where even today there are more Blacks there than here, we revolted and established a mighty, legendary Palmares Republic, which lasted for over 100 years. This maroon state stood as the greatest challenge to European rule in so-called Latin America. The Quilombos of Palmares had elected a republic, a free, united people living communally and in prosperity. Periodically, the people of Palmares ventured from the hills to rescue others who were enslaved, obtain arms, powder, tools, mete out justice to overseers. Despite military expedition after expedition, the Republic of Palmares remained independent and was not destroyed by the Portuguese until nearly 100 years later, after a 42-day siege where many of our warriors flung themselves over a cliff rather than surrender. The ruler at the time, Ganga Zumbi, was captured and beheaded by the enemy. His head displayed, said the Europeans, quote, to kill the legend of his immortality. Talk about terrorism. But for generations, the Republic of Palmares had united many peoples under an African form of government and culture, and had successfully defended itself from invaders. And each time, after victory, it had returned to planting and harvesting abundant crops and continuing its quest for sovereignty. Over here, however, y'all, free communities set up by escaped Africans in Florida, Georgia, and elsewhere in territory claimed by the United States were continuously sought out and ruthlessly destroyed. Every time we ran away, it didn't matter whether we just tiptoed quietly in the night, Harriet Tubman. It didn't matter we organized elaborate insurrections, Denmark Vesey. It didn't matter we fled to Pennsylvania or New York. They were going to come after us with their armed forces and their paddy rollers and their militia and their dogs. Why? Why didn't it matter? Because the white folk had decided that they were going to live here. Wasn't going to be no 100 years of Palmares liberation. They vowed that they would not let us just walk off into the woods and swamps and develop our own, and they go back to France and England or Spain because it got too hot. This was not going to be their vacation spot. They had planned to stay. So they chased us and they pursued us and they tracked us down and they beat us and they castrated us and they lynched us and they sought to quell all forms of resistance and Black nation building. But we resisted. From St. Q and the Amistad to Peter Poyas and Gullah Jack, Denmark Vesey in South Carolina to Nat Turner and Virginia to David Walker's Appeal, and the list goes on and on. We resisted. To the African people who were forced to come to this land, Black nationalism was not viewed lightly. Self-determination, what Malcolm preached, was what most Blacks wanted. Well, Brother Imari says, well, you might ask, why not just join this new white nation that was coming up on these shores during that time? And so he would respond to me. He would say, we did not come here voluntarily. We came as a result of war. And without question, all of the available evidence bore a crystal clear message for the enslaved African on this land that white folk did not intend for Black people to be citizens of the white nation that they were founding. They were all terrorists. They all owned slaves. Jefferson, Washington, Patrick Henry. We forget far too easily. We must remember the origins of the African nation in North America. We are the descendants of Africans illegally kidnapped and transported to the United States by whites with the explicit complicity of the United States government and every single arm of the United States lawmaking and law enforcing machinery, federal law, state court, high law court decisions, lower court decisions. Our enslavement in the 13 colonies in the US was a matter of war. War conducted against us under the authority of the US Constitution. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution, passed in 1865, recognized the freedom of all Blacks. But because we were a free people, Brother Maury taught, our nation was possessed of rights, irrespective of action or inaction by the Americans. And we began to ask ourselves, how do we wish to govern ourselves? Should we leave? Should we stay here? Just what does this right to self-determination entail? Well, the New African Independence Movement analyzed this right to self-determination would extend to the right to return home to Africa, for we have been in America as a result of a vicious kidnapping unmatched in human history. He continued that the right to self-determination would extend to the right to general immigration, as our families have been cruelly fragmented and spread across the diaspora. The right to self-determination would also extend to the right to seek admission as citizens to the American community and to strive to make a multiracial democracy real. But he concluded, the right to self-determination will also extend to the right to establish an independent, separate territory of our own, for we have been constructed outside of the American community, found ourselves on soil claimed by the US in great numbers, enforced ignorance, and severed homeland ties. So, and Brother Maury explained that for 2.5 years after the 13th Amendment, we were deciding our destiny until the US government in 1868 essentially insisted that we had no right to self-determination and attempted to nullify our nationalistic options by unilaterally declaring us citizens of their nation. The audacity. How are you going to take a free people and tell them they got to be part of your family? Didn't ask him if he wanted to join. Didn't matter if he wanted to start his own family if the African were free. No one, not even the ex-slaveholder, could define a future status for the free people and impose a status upon them. This right was the ex-enslaved, the Africans alone, and it was the fruit of the right to self-determination. You see, Brother Maury, Brother Chokwe, and Republic of New Africa taught that international law says Portugal. You can't go to Angola and tell the Angolan people that they are Portuguese citizens. France, you can't take Algerian people and make them French citizens. But that is exactly what we have accepted from them without debate as to our political status. They said the 14th Amendment made us citizens, and we accepted that message, lock, stock, and barrel, despite our rights under international law and despite the repressive actions of the US government and its white citizenship century. The problem, Brother Maury often stated, is that it is white nationalism and fraud that has left many otherwise fine African minds among us functionally unable to think of independence and land as a viable option for nationhood. Some of us, however, he said, feel that freedom cannot be amorphous or misty. It must be, as Malcolm said, for land and sovereignty. For unless the struggle is for land and independence, it is a domestic matter between citizens of a nation who are treated right and those who are treated wrong. And it is to be settled as a domestic matter between them. And we have suffered the tragic results of such a settlement process for over 200 years. So Brother Maury continued, he said that for years our people talked about, had asked for, had begged for land anywhere. That's what McCabe said back in the 1880s. He wanted Oklahoma and said, Black folk, let's go and make this a Black state where we can take our families and live in peace. Pap Singleton and Henry Adams took over 40,000 Black people and went up into Kansas. During Reconstruction, the twin demands of Black people everywhere was land and education. And after that, our brothers and sisters insisted, give us land anywhere. You name it. It was on the back of Muhammad Speaks year after year after year. Give us land anywhere. Malcolm X preachers said land was the basis of freedom and independence on the back of the Black Panther paper. You remember, give us land, bread, clothing, housing, justice, education, and peace. And so the Republican New African followed and said, yes, land, independence. And since you won't name it, we will. Black nationalism, a Black nation, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. And we're going to write a declaration of independence for that nation. And we're going to create a government and an army. And that's when all hell broke loose. You see, they didn't care if we flew the red, black, and green flag and sang freedom songs. They didn't care if we marched and demonstrated. They really didn't care if we called them honkies and pigs and devils, as long as we did not talk about creating the answer to Marcus Garvey's probing questions during the 20s of where is the Black man's government, his king, his kingdom, his president, his army, his navy, his men of big affairs, as long as we didn't talk about creating a government to lead the political life of the nation, as long as we didn't talk about an army to defend that government, as long as we didn't talk about reparations. You see, Brother Mari, and I'm kind of coming down to a close soon, they didn't care if we went back to Africa, as long as we didn't mind jumping in the ocean and swimming naked, as long as the issue would not be raised about reparations to seek to restore some of the African personality that they systematically sought to destroy, as long as we didn't, as Malcolm said, internationalize our struggle, new African political science for the new African independence movement. And just before I close, I just want to speak to the issue of reparations. I was asked to very briefly, because something very historic just recently happened last week. It is an issue whose time has come. There was a hearing in the House of Representatives Judiciary Committee. I submitted written testimony for the record for that hearing, addressing the history and development of the reparations movement in the US. Many people don't realize that reparations were in fact paid at the end of slavery. It just wasn't paid to us, y'all. Reparations was paid to the former white slaveholders for the loss of us, their so-called property. And so HR 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparations Proposals, now has more co-sponsors than it ever had. There's a bill in the Senate. We're working towards markup and then a vote on the floor. So in conclusion, again, they didn't care if we flew the red, black, and green flag or marched and demonstrated. They didn't, as long as we didn't mobilize for resistance like Ganga Zumbi. We could talk about self-defense. We can organize for reparations, as long as we don't go about masterminding armed insurrections inside the belly of the beast. Didn't they just do that? Okay, anyway, as long as we don't talk about working towards the mobilization of generations, the systematic education of our youth that can continue, and I dare say complete, that which Malcolm started. As long as we are not skilled in the art of historical analysis and the necessary science of nation building. So what must we do? We must learn from the strengths and weaknesses of our predecessors. We must embrace the strengths and struggle against the weaknesses of the military campaigns for independence, from Palmares to Haiti, from Vesey to Turner. We must embrace the strengths and struggle against the weaknesses of the Garvey movement and analyze, how do we struggle against and offset the cult of the individual, which makes it so easy so that when they destroy the leader, the movement is destroyed. We must embrace the strengths and struggle against the weaknesses of the Black Panther Party. We must question the role of too rapid growth and the oft-times empty rhetoric played in the party's demise. We must embrace the strengths and struggle against the weaknesses of the Republic of New Africa and seriously ask ourselves, does it matter if the ideology is politically correct? If you can't convince the masses to follow it. We must embrace the strengths and struggle against the weaknesses of the Black Liberation Army. And we must recognize the connections and roots of our struggle today. And we must continue the centuries-long fight for reparatory justice. So I will end as I began with Malcolm X. The New African Independence Movement owes its coming into existence in the sacrifice and continuing powerful presence of Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz. In the words of Maulana Ron Karenga, Malcolm was a leader and liberator, freedom fighter, saber, master teacher, minister, organizer, counselor, journalist, author, institution builder, martyr, mujahid, Pan-Africanist, prisoner rights and human rights advocate, molder of men and women, and prophet who saw and predicted the unfolding of a new future for Africans and humankind and sacrificed his life to sow the way towards it. Thank you.
That's what we're talking about. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Let's see, Brother Desmond, if you can mute yourself. As I sit and listen to Mama Nkechi, you know, I see you as like a TV. I can see sitting at home watching you on television. It'd be something like tea, cake, and revolutionary conversation. You know, just feel so comfortable. You open it up and just getting the word. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We need to get more of this. We need to see you again. But a wonderful presentation. I'm making notes. I got more notes than I can fit on my sheet of paper. But anyway, thank you very much. Beautiful job, well presented. Your library, your background. It's not virtual, it is real.
And I would never believe that you were afraid of public speaking. No way, but you say it in your book, so I guess it must be for real. All right, what?
Very, very good. I think I'd love to see you and Minister Imhotep. You guys have your library side to side, because Minister Imhotep got a library. Y'all can compare notes. So
May I say
thank you.
something, Sidney? May I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say I love you so much, girl. I do, sister. And I just, you know, Sister Nkechi is the only person I know that speaks that fast. And she's the only person that I care to try to keep up with. And they do speak that fast. It's like when she gets on the mic, you know, you better clean your ears out and get ready and keep up, because it's gonna be good. But I love you so much, sister. Your energy and your knowledge and your desire to just put it out there to us. I appreciate you so much.
Asante, thank you.
Yeah. Fundi, boy, just sharing that information, you know, and then we're gonna move on in a second. But I would listen to Sister Nkechi brought me back to a point I read this morning that Ella Baker said that the prisons for Black people was the largest provider of mental health care, substance abuse, and rehabilitation in our country. So when she talks about this whole twisted system, we can see how it is that for as long as the country, as this country is concerned, prisons would be where we would go for mental health. Prisons is where we would go for substance abuse, for rehabilitation, is go to jail, get beat, told what to do, and then we release you. And that's wrong. And when they talk about free the land and talk about building, nation building, this is the right way. And so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
So can I just give a real quick shout out? I see Brother Maynard Henry, who's a great nephew of Brother Mario Badali, is in the house. Brother Hanif and Sister Salah, Brother Imani Mahdi, who was way back in the day, Sister Imani Kazan. I just wanted to give, I just saw those names in the of folk that, Brother Tahima knows he folk that, Brother Damani Keene and his wife. So I just want to say thank you for joining and supporting. Also, Brother Buzz, Ty's Brother Buzz.
All right. And right now, let me just do this. We want to open it up to Minister Imhotep, because those who listen and say, man, I want to be a part of this. I want to do something. What can I do with this information? How can I be a part of this community? Brother Imhotep, could you help the community know what they could do to be a part of this movement?
Keep going, Baba Sidney. Keep going, Baba Sidney. And then we will, what a powerful message. I did take notes. I'll send them to you, Nkechi, afterwards. And keep going. The invitation is extended, and then we'll have the song, the closing song by Brother Damu Sudi Ali will give us Lift Every Voice and Sing. But we extend the invitation now to you. If you'd like to become a part of Wose community officially, you may just be on the sidelines listening in, but now is your chance to raise your hand, to say, I want to be a part. I want to to learn more about New Africa. I want to be a Malcolmite. I want to know the teachings of Ma'at. You may step forward now, sister or brother. Maybe some children might lead the parents. If you would come today. I just got a note. Somebody said, send me the notes, Brother Imhotep. Now, sometimes I know it looks like I'm just typing and it doesn't seem like I'm paying attention, but I'm taking notes on my phone. And, sometimes I send the messages to the presenters. All right, I will, brother. I will send you my notes. Okay. Are you inspired? Are you? I mean, like you say, you have to run. May you run and never tire. That's what you'll have to do if you want to keep up with Sister Nkechi. All right, because she is leading the pack, and you have to like her sign, climbing up the hill tirelessly. You have to follow her in order to keep up. Thank you again. Yes.
And I think it was a sister Shamila. Shamila looked like she raised her hand. Did you get that?
I did not see it, but I'm asking if Sister Shamila is in fact wanting to be a part of us. I'm going to ask Baba Tayimba to come and to reach out to her. And tell her what she needs to be doing. Sister Shamila, you want to say something?
Not really. I'm not feeling very well. I'm kind of just laying down, listening myself.
Okay.
But I've been interested for a while. So I am definitely want the information.
All right.
Located at?
Baba Tayimba will, or someone from the community will reach out and get in touch with you. Shamila McClain.
Yeah, I live in Oakland.
You live in Oakland. All right. Well, very good. Okay. Anyone else? Don't want to slight anyone. Don't want to miss anyone that would like to become official. I mean, there are a number of us that are unofficial. You know what? Now everybody was in the Black Panthers, but back then,
yes,
back then people were afraid of the Black Panthers. They would say it sometimes in muffled tones. And I heard Jay Alfred say this once. He said, when the Black Panthers were on their J, then some of us middle class folks got our promotions. And so we're on the backs of those that have dared to challenge the system. And we're reaping the benefits. So don't just sit in the sidelines if you want to be a member of WOSE today. Just step right up and speak up. Speak up and speak out right now. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Baba Sudi Ali.
Yeah, there you go.
Damu Sudi Ali, my good friend. Go ahead, brethren.
beautiful. And as we stand together and virtually hold hands, or if you're sitting in the room with a loved one or a family member, hold their hands. And as we follow in the footsteps of all those great ancestors, many who we mentioned today, that we follow in their footsteps, follow in their movements, follow in their belief system, follow in what they do, follow in what they have done and leading us the way. We stand and we hold our hand together and we call on those ancestors, we call on those names, we say the words that our families, our ancestors have said for so many years. Let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
You are the